The rain had been falling for 3 days straight. I remember that detail because I kept thinking the gutters needed cleaning, and David used to handle that for me. David handled everything once. Now the water pooled against the kitchen windows like the house itself was crying, and I stood at the counter with a cup of coffee I'd forgotten to drink, watching it go cold. The phone rang at 4:47 in the afternoon. I know the exact time because I glanced at the clock on the stove, annoyed at the interruption. I'd been planning Leo's dinosaur-themed birthday party, making lists in my careful handwriting, napkins, plates, that paleontologist from the museum he loved so much. Martha. Dr. Alan Harrison's voice was strange, flat. We'd known each other for 30 years. He'd been at my wedding, at Robert's funeral, at David's. I'd never heard him sound like this. Alan? Is everything all right? A pause. The kind of pause that changes everything that comes after it. Martha, please, sit down. I didn't sit. My body knew something my mind hadn't caught up to yet. I gripped the edge of the granite countertop, the cold stone biting into my palms. I reviewed these results 3 times, he said. I ran them twice more because I knew what they would do to you. But I have to tell you the truth. What results? Alan, you're scaring me. The blood work you asked me to look at. Leo's blood type. You were right that something didn't add up. So I ran a full genetic panel, compared it to the samples we have on file from David's medical records. The rain hammered harder against the glass. Somewhere upstairs, I could hear Leo's cartoon playing, the cheerful voices of animated dinosaurs teaching children about the Jurassic period. Martha. Alan's voice cracked. Leo is not a biological match to your family line. He's not David's son. He never was. The coffee cup slipped from my hand. I watched it fall in slow motion, the white ceramic, the brown liquid arcing through the air. And when it shattered against the tile floor, I thought, that's exactly what's happening inside my chest right now. That's impossible, I whispered. But even as I said it, I felt something cold and terrible settle into my bones. Not surprise, recognition. I'm so sorry, Alan said. I'm so deeply sorry. I couldn't speak. The shards of the cup lay scattered at my feet like broken teeth, and the coffee spread in a dark puddle that seeped toward my slippers. I should clean that up, I thought. I should get paper towels. I should do something. Instead, I slid down the cabinet until I was sitting on the wet floor, the phone pressed to my ear, and I let myself remember. David's funeral had been in October 5 years ago. The leaves were turning that heartbreaking shade of gold that makes you think about mortality, whether you want to or not. I stood at the grave in my black dress, the same one I'd worn for Robert just 3 years earlier, and I thought, this is not the natural order. Parents are not supposed to bury their children. Chloe stood beside me, clutching baby Leo to her chest. She was crying beautifully. I remember thinking how strange that was, how even in grief, she looked camera-ready. Her mascara didn't run. Her blonde hair was perfectly arranged. She sobbed at all the right moments, leaned into me at all the right times. I don't know how I'll survive this, she'd whispered. David was everything to me. Everything. I believed her. God help me. I believed every word. After the service, after the casseroles and the sympathy cards, and the endless stream of mourners who didn't know what to say, Chloe had come to me with a letter. David wrote this, she said, her voice trembling. Before the accident. He must have known somehow. He wanted you to have it. The paper was cream-colored, heavy stock. David's handwriting, or what I thought was David's handwriting, slanted across the page. Mom, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. Please take care of Chloe and Leo. They're all I have in this world, and now they're all you have left of me. Leo is your grandson, your legacy. Promise me you'll give him everything I would have given him. Promise me you'll never let them struggle. I love you, David. I wept over that letter. I kept it in my nightstand drawer and read it every night for the first year. I built my entire life around honoring my dead son's final wish. Now, sitting on my kitchen floor with coffee soaking into my clothes, I understood. The letter was a lie. Leo was a lie. Everything, every single thing was a lie. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the rain to soften to a drizzle. Long enough for Alan to say my name 6 times before I finally responded. Martha? Martha, are you still there? Do you need me to come over? No. My voice sounded foreign to me, hollow. No, I need to think. After I hung up, I pulled myself off the floor. My knees ached, 62 years old, and I felt every single one of them in that moment. I cleaned up the broken cup with mechanical precision, wiped down the floor, threw away the paper towels. Then I walked to the living room. The mantel was covered with photographs. Leo at 6 months, chubby-cheeked and laughing. Leo at 2, covered in birthday cake. Leo at 4, holding my hand at the zoo, pointing at the elephants with pure wonder in his eyes. I picked up the silver frame that held my favorite picture. Leo and me at Christmas, both of us wearing ridiculous matching sweaters, a pile of presents behind us. I'd spent $4,000 on that Christmas, just for him. Just for my grandson. My grandson. The words felt like poison now. For 5 years, I had poured my entire heart into this child. I had paid for the elite preschool, the private tutors, the organic meals, the trips to Disney World. I had paid off Chloe's credit cards, bought her a Mercedes, funded her self-care retreats to spas I couldn't pronounce. I had purchased a condo in Florida for her mother, so Brenda could be closer to her only grandchild. I had let Chloe's brother Tyler live in my guest house rent-free because family helps family. I had done all of this because I believed I was honoring David's memory, protecting David's son. But David didn't have a son. I set the photograph down carefully, precisely. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Outside, I heard the crunch of tires on wet gravel. Chloe's white Mercedes pulled into the driveway. Through the window, I watched her check her reflection in the rearview mirror, touch up her lipstick, smooth her hair, taking her time. Why would she rush? She had no idea the ground was about to collapse beneath her designer heels. She stepped out of the car holding shopping bags, Nordstrom, Saks, Louis Vuitton, my credit cards, my money. For the last time, I thought. She walked toward the house, and I stood very still in my living room, surrounded by photographs of a grandson who didn't exist, waiting for the woman who had stolen 5 years of my life. And something inside me, something I hadn't felt since Robert died, began to wake up. Not grief, not sadness. Rage, i.e. Before we continue the story, leave a like and comment your age and where you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story has reached. I had 60 seconds to compose myself before the front door opened. 60 seconds to rearrange my face into the expression Chloe expected. The doting grandmother, the generous mother-in-law, the grieving widow who had transferred all her maternal love onto the woman who carried her son's legacy. 60 seconds to become the fool I had been for 5 years. The door swung open, and there she was, Chloe Mercer, 34 years old, 5'7" in her Louboutin heels, wearing a cashmere sweater that cost more than some people's rent. Her perfume entered the room before she did, something French and expensive that I'd paid for, like everything else. Martha. She set down her shopping bags with the carelessness of someone who had never worried about money. You would not believe the traffic on I-95. I've been in the car for 2 hours. I'm absolutely exhausted. I watched her the way I might watch a nature documentary, a predator in its natural habitat. Shopping in the city? I asked. My voice sounded normal. Pleasant, even. Just a few things for Leo's birthday party. She pulled a tiny blazer from one of the bags. Gucci kids, I noticed. Isn't this adorable? He'll look like such a little gentleman. $300, maybe $4, for a jacket a 5-year-old would wear once. Lovely, I said. Chloe flopped onto my sofa, the antique settee Robert's mother had left us, and kicked off her heels. God, my feet are killing me. Oh, Martha, I meant to talk to you about something. Here it comes, I thought. It always came. The party budget, she continued, examining her manicure. I know we said 15,000, but I found this amazing event planner who does dinosaur themes, and she's booked all the A-list kids' parties in Greenwich. She charges 25, but she's worth every penny. Leo deserves the best, don't you think? $25,000 for a 5-year-old's birthday party, for a child who wasn't even my grandson. I'll think about it, I said. Chloe's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. She wasn't used to hearing anything other than yes. Think about it? Martha, the party is in 2 weeks. I need to put down a deposit tomorrow. I said I'll think about it. Something flickered across her face. Irritation, maybe. Or the early stages of the manipulation I'd never recognized before. She sat up straighter, softened her voice. I'm sorry. I know I can be pushy sometimes. It's just... She paused, arranged her features into an expression of wounded vulnerability. I want everything to be perfect for Leo. He's all we have left of David. You understand that, don't you? The knife slid in so smoothly, so practiced. Of course, I heard myself say. We'll discuss it tomorrow. After she went upstairs to check on Leo, I stood alone in my living room, and I realized I had never truly seen her before. Not once in 7 years. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay in the dark of the master bedroom, the bed too big, always too big since Robert passed, and I stared at the ceiling and let my mind do what it should have done years ago. I did the math. At 2 a.m., I gave up on rest entirely. I put on my robe, made myself a cup of chamomile tea I knew I wouldn't drink, and went to Robert's old study. The room still smelled like him, leather and old books and the faint ghost of his cologne. I'd kept his files meticulously organized, just as he'd taught me. For 5 years, I had been generous without ever counting the cost. Now I counted. I pulled out bank statements, credit card records, check stubs. I opened the computer and logged into accounts I rarely checked because I trusted the people I was supporting. The numbers told a story, a horror story. The private preschool, $42,000 per year, times 4 years. That was $168,000. Chloe's household allowance, $8,000 per month, times 60 months. That was $480,000. The Mercedes, $85,000. Her credit card bills, which I paid monthly without looking too closely, an average of $12,000 per month. Over 5 years, $720,000. I stopped. My hands were trembling again. $720,000. Just in credit card bills. I kept going. The medical emergencies that required wire transfers. The investment opportunities her brother Tyler had brought to her. The educational trust I'd established for Leo that Chloe had somehow accessed for related expenses. The Florida condo for Brenda, $890,000 purchase price plus $4,500 monthly in HOA fees and maintenance that I covered. Tyler's rent-free residence in my guest house for 3 years, plus the $2,000 monthly stipend I gave him to help him get back on his feet after his business failed. By 4 a.m., I had a number, $1,437,000, $1,437,000, gone, stolen, siphoned away by a woman who had looked me in the eyes at my son's funeral and wept her beautiful, fake tears. I sat back in Robert's chair and I thought about what that money represented. Decades of work, Robert's career as a surgeon, my years as a hospital administrator, our retirement fund, our savings, the inheritance we'd planned to leave to David. David, who was dead. David, who had no son. David, who had been betrayed too. Married to a woman who was already carrying another man's child. I closed my eyes and let the grief and rage wash over me in equal measure. Then I opened Robert's bottom drawer. I had never been a sentimental organizer, but I'd kept everything. Every email I'd printed, every letter, every document. Call it paranoia. Call it the habit of a woman who spent 30 years managing hospital bureaucracy. Whatever it was, I was grateful for it now. I found what I was looking for at 5:30 a.m., an email chain, printed 8 months ago because something about it had bothered me, though I couldn't articulate why at the time. It was between Chloe and an address I hadn't recognized. Now I read it with new eyes. See, the old woman increased the monthly allowance like you said she would. Just keep playing the grief card. By my calculations, you'll have full access to the trust by Leo's 18th birthday. That's $2, $3 million plus whatever else you can extract before then. Stay the course. Jessame. I stared at that single letter. J. My mind raced. J could be anyone. One of Chloe's friends. A co-conspirator I hadn't identified. Then I noticed the email address. Janet Holloway. Personal Ugmail. Calm. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk. Janet. My sister Janet. My baby sister, whom I had supported through her divorce, whom I had lent money to when her husband left her with nothing, whom I had invited to every holiday dinner for the past 15 years. Janet, who had sat across from me at Thanksgiving and complimented Chloe's parenting. Janet, who had held my hand at David's funeral and whispered, "At least you have Leo." Janet, who was calling me the old woman and coaching my daughter-in-law on how to drain my accounts. Something broke inside me then, not my heart. That had already shattered on the kitchen floor. This was different. This was the last fragile thread of trust I had in the people I loved. It snapped, and in its place, something harder took root. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. Gregory Stein's office. How may I direct your call? This is Martha Holloway, I said. My voice was ice. Tell Gregory I need to see him today. It's urgent. A pause. Mrs. Holloway, Mr. Stein is in court this morning. Tell him it's about David's estate. Tell him there's been fraud. He'll make time. I hung up before she could respond. Outside the study window, the sun was rising over my 3 acres of manicured lawn. The guest house where Tyler slept rent-free was visible through the trees. Somewhere upstairs, Chloe was dreaming peacefully in the bedroom I'd decorated for her, in the house my husband built, wrapped in sheets I'd paid for. Enjoy it, I thought. Enjoy your last days of comfort, because the generous fool just woke up, and she's coming for everything. Gregory Stein had been my husband's attorney for 25 years. He'd handled Robert's malpractice insurance, our estate planning, David's small trust fund. When Robert died, Gregory had guided me through the labyrinth of probate with patience and precision. Now he sat across from me in his wood-paneled office in White Plains, his face gray as he reviewed the documents I'd brought. Martha. He took off his reading glasses and rubbed his eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you can help me. I can help you. That's not the question. He spread his hands over the papers, bank statements, the forged letter, the printed email from Janet. The question is how far you want to go. All the way. He nodded slowly. The letter is a forgery. I had David's signature on file from when he established his small investment account. I've compared them. This isn't even a good fake. Tyler Mercer, whoever he is, should have done his research. Chloe's brother. He lives in my guest house. Gregory's jaw tightened. Of course he does. What are my options? He leaned forward. Legally, you have several. Fraud, for starters. Chloe accessed funds under false pretenses, claiming Leo was David's biological son to secure financial support. That's actionable. The forged letter constitutes fraud and potentially forgery, depending on who created it and how it was used. If Tyler was involved, he's criminally liable. And Janet? The name caught in my throat. Gregory noticed. Your sister's involvement complicates things emotionally, but legally, it strengthens your case. That email shows premeditation and conspiracy. She was coaching Chloe on how to manipulate you. He paused. Martha, I have to ask. Are you sure you want to pursue this? Janet is family. Janet stopped being family when she called me the old woman and calculated how much money she could help steal from me. Gregory held my gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. Here's what I recommend. We gather more evidence before we act. Document everything. Record conversations if you can. New York is a one-party consent state, so you're legally permitted to record any conversation you're part of. Get Chloe to reveal her true colors on tape if possible. And then we freeze the accounts, terminate the allowances, and begin eviction proceedings for the guest house. The Florida condo is trickier. It's in Brenda's name, but since you have records showing you paid for it entirely, we can argue it was fraudulently obtained. I gathered my documents and stood. Leo's birthday dinner is Saturday. The whole family will be there. Chloe, her mother, Tyler, Janet, all of them in one place. Gregory raised an eyebrow. You're planning something. I'm planning to watch and listen and remember exactly who these people are when they think they're winning. The restaurant was called Lucia's. White tablecloths, dim lighting, the kind of place where the waiters memorize your name, and the wine list costs more than some people's car payments. Chloe had chosen it, of course. She always chose the most expensive option. I arrived early. I wanted to watch them enter. Brenda came first, draped in a silk blouse I recognized from a Neiman Marcus charge last month. She air-kissed Chloe and immediately began complaining about her flight from Florida. The turbulence was awful, and they ran out of the good champagne in first class. Can you imagine? I should write a letter. First class, on tickets I paid for, to attend a party I funded, for a child who wasn't my grandson. Tyler arrived next, slouching in a sport coat that didn't quite fit. He'd gained weight since moving into my guest house. Too many late nights, too much free food from my kitchen. He greeted Chloe with a hug that lasted a beat too long, and I saw them exchange a look. A look that said, everything's going according to plan. Then Janet, my sister. My baby sister, who I'd protected from bullies in grade school, who I'd helped through college when our parents couldn't afford it, who I'd held when her husband walked out. She smiled when she saw me, the same warm, sisterly smile I'd known for 60 years. Martha, you look wonderful. How are you holding up? Holding up. As if I were fragile. As if I needed managing. I'm fine, Janet. Thank you for coming. She squeezed my hand with practiced affection. I wouldn't miss Leo's birthday for the world. Family is everything. Family is everything. The words tasted like ash. Leo ran to me when the babysitter dropped him off. A tiny tornado in his little Gucci blazer, his arms wrapping around my legs. Nana! Nana! Did you see the dinosaur cake? Mommy said it has chocolate inside. I knelt down and hugged him. This child. This innocent, beautiful child who had no idea he was a pawn in his mother's scheme. I breathed in the smell of his shampoo, baby clean, sweet, and I felt my heart crack along its fault lines. Whatever happened next, I had to remember. Leo was a victim too. Happy birthday, sweetheart, I whispered. Nana loves you very much. I love you too, Nana, forever and ever, forever and ever. The promise of a 5-year-old who didn't know that forever had an expiration date. The dinner progressed like a performance. Chloe held court at the head of the table, orchestrating conversations, laughing at Tyler's terrible jokes, praising her mother's sacrifices in flying all the way from Florida. Janet played the supportive aunt, cooing over Leo, complimenting Chloe's parenting choices. And I watched. I noticed how Brenda's eyes flicked to my jewelry, appraising, calculating. I noticed how Tyler refilled his wine glass 4 times before the entrees arrived. I noticed how Janet avoided my direct gaze, always looking slightly to the left of my face. These people, I thought, these people I fed, these people I housed, these people I loved, they were waiting for me to die. The realization hit me like ice water. That was the end game, wasn't it? Chloe had said it herself. By Leo's 18th birthday, she'd have full access to the trust. But why wait that long when the old woman might conveniently pass away and leave everything to her grandson and his devoted mother? I set down my fork. Suddenly, the osso buco tasted like cardboard. Martha? Chloe's voice cut through my thoughts. Are you all right? You've barely touched your food. I'm fine. Just thinking. You're always thinking. She laughed, but there was an edge to it. You know what your problem is? You worry too much. You should relax. Enjoy your life. Enjoy my life, I repeated. Yes, travel. Take a cruise. You've earned it. She reached for the breadbasket, casual as anything. Speaking of which, I've been meaning to talk to you about the monthly allowance. Here it comes. I felt the table's attention shift. What about it? I asked. Well, it's just... Chloe sighed dramatically. Everything is so expensive these days. Leo's school is raising tuition, and I've had some unexpected expenses. The $8,000 just isn't stretching like it used to. You want more money? I want what's fair. Her voice hardened slightly. Martha, I've dedicated my life to raising your grandson. I gave up my career, my independence, everything, to keep David's memory alive. I think a small increase isn't unreasonable. I said nothing. I just looked at her. And something in my silence must have triggered her, because Chloe's mask slipped. You know what? Forget it. She threw her napkin on the table. You're so controlling. You always have been. You dole out money like we're beggars, like we should be grateful for every crumb. But let me remind you of something, Martha. She leaned forward, and her voice dropped to a hiss that the whole table could still hear. I'm the only thing keeping you connected to your son's legacy. Without Leo, you're just a lonely old woman in a big house waiting to die. So maybe you should think about that before you question what I deserve. The silence was absolute. Brenda smirked into her wine glass. Tyler studied his plate. Janet, my own sister, said nothing, did nothing, just sat there while Chloe eviscerated me in public. I looked around the table at these people I had supported, housed, funded, loved, and I felt something shift inside me. The last ember of doubt extinguished. The last hope that maybe I was wrong. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding. Gone. Excuse me, I said quietly. I need some air. I stood, walked past the white tablecloths and the murmuring diners, pushed through the heavy front door, and stepped into the cool night. The parking lot was empty, except for Chloe's Mercedes, the one I'd bought her, gleaming under the streetlights. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Gregory answered on the second ring. Martha, is everything all right? No, I said. Nothing is all right, but it's going to be. I watched my reflection in the dark window of the restaurant, a 62-year-old woman in a nice dress, standing alone in a parking lot, about to burn her life to the ground. Gregory, I want you to start the paperwork tomorrow, all of it. The fraud charges, the evictions, everything. Are you sure? I just sat through dinner with 4 people who are waiting for me to die so they can take what's left. So yes, Gregory, I'm sure. I hung up and looked at the stars, cold, distant, indifferent. The lonely old woman in the big house was done being generous. Now it was time to be something else entirely. I didn't sleep that night. After the restaurant, I had returned to the table with a placid smile, played the role of the forgiving matriarch, even paid the $100 or $200 bill without comment. Chloe had the nerve to hug me goodbye, whispering, I'm sorry I snapped. You know I love you, Martha. I let her believe she was forgiven. I let them all believe everything was fine. But at 3 a.m., I sat in Robert's study with a legal pad, writing down every question I needed answered. Who is Leo's biological father? How do I prove the letter was forged? What are Chloe's legal rights to Leo if she committed fraud? Can I press charges against my own sister? By sunrise, I had a plan. Eleanor Vance lived in a beautiful Tudor house in Bronxville, just 20 minutes from my home. We'd been roommates at Vassar 50 years ago, 2 ambitious girls who swore they'd never let men define their lives. She became a family court judge. I became a hospital administrator. We'd stayed close through marriages, children, funerals. She opened the door in her gardening gloves, took one look at my face and said, Good Lord, Martha, what happened? I told her everything. We sat in her sun-drenched kitchen, and I laid out the whole sordid tale, the DNA results, the forged letter, the $1. 4 million. Janet's betrayal. Chloe's cruelty at dinner. Eleanor listened without interrupting, her face growing grimmer with each revelation. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "I've seen a lot of terrible things in family court," she finally said. "Custody battles that destroyed children, divorces that bankrupted everyone involved. But this," she shook her head, "this is calculated evil, Martha. These people targeted you deliberately." "I know." "What do you want to do about it?" "I want them out of my life. I want my money protected, and I want Leo to have a chance at a real family, whoever that might be." Eleanor nodded slowly. "The biological father. Do you know who he is?" "Not yet." "Find him. If he's a decent person and he wants to be in Leo's life, that changes everything. Chloe's parental rights could be challenged if she obtained financial support through fraud. It's complicated, but it's possible." She leaned forward. "You need a private investigator, someone good, someone discreet. Do you know anyone?" She smiled grimly. "I know everyone. Let me make a call." His name was Frank Delano, 60 years old, former NYPD detective, built like a refrigerator with a face like crumpled leather. He didn't look like much, but Eleanor swore he was the best in Westchester County. We met at a diner in Yonkers, neutral territory. I slid the folder across the table. Everything I knew about Chloe, her family, her history. "I need to know who Leo's real father is," I said. "And I need proof that the letter my daughter-in-law showed me was forged." Frank flipped through the documents, his expression unreadable. "This your grandson?" "I thought he was. For 5 years, I thought he was." He grunted. "People are garbage. No offense to present company." "None taken. Can you help me?" "Lady, I've tracked down deadbeat dads, cheating husbands, and embezzlers who fled to Costa Rica. This?" He tapped the folder. "This is a Tuesday. Give me a week." It took him 6 days. The report arrived in a manila envelope, hand-delivered to my door. I read it in Robert's study with the door locked, my hands trembling. Ryan Caldwell, 36 years old. Personal trainer at an upscale gym in Greenwich. Never married. No children, or so he thought. Frank had included photographs. Ryan was handsome in that generic athletic way. Square jaw, good teeth, the kind of man who probably smiled at himself in mirrors. He'd been Chloe's trainer for 2 years, starting 8 months before David died. The timeline was damning. Chloe had begun her affair with Ryan while still married to my son. She'd gotten pregnant while David was still alive. And when David died in that car accident, an accident, I now wondered, or had she somehow? No, I couldn't go there. Not yet. Some doors, once opened, could never be closed. The report continued. Tyler Mercer had a prior arrest for check fraud in New Jersey. Charges dropped due to insufficient evidence. He'd also been fired from 2 jobs for financial irregularities. The man living rent-free in my guest house was a professional con artist. And the letter? Frank had found a handwriting expert who compared it to David's known samples. The conclusion was definitive. The document in question was not written by the purported author. Multiple inconsistencies in letter formation, pressure patterns, and spacing indicate forgery. I set down the report and stared at the wall. My son had been betrayed. My grandson wasn't my grandson. My daughter-in-law was a con artist, and her brother was her accomplice. But there was still one question I needed answered. Why Janet? Why my own sister? I called her the next morning. "Janet, I need to see you. Today, just the 2 of us." A pause. Was that suspicion in her voice? "Is everything all right, Martha?" "I just want to talk." "Sister to sister, can you meet me at the house? Say, noon?" Of course I can." She arrived at 12:15, carrying a bottle of wine like a peace offering. I met her at the door with a smile that felt like broken glass in my mouth. "Come in." I made tea. We sat in the living room. The same room where I'd watched Chloe through new eyes just weeks ago. Janet perched on the edge of the settee, her fingers fidgeting with her necklace. "Martha, you seem different since the birthday dinner. Are you upset about what Chloe said?" "Should I be?" "She was out of line. I told her so afterwards." "Did you?" Janet's eyes darted away. "Of course I did. You're my sister." I let the silence stretch. In my pocket, my phone was recording. Gregory had reminded me, one-party consent. I only needed my own permission. "Janet," I said quietly, "I know. Know what? I know about the emails. I know about the plan. I know you've been helping Chloe steal from me." The color drained from her face. For a moment, she looked like a stranger, someone I'd never met, wearing my sister's skin. "Martha, I don't. My voice was sharp enough to cut. "Don't insult me with more lies. I have the emails, Janet. The old woman increased the monthly allowance. Stay the course. Your words." She crumbled. It happened slowly, like a building collapsing from the inside, her shoulders sagging, her face folding, her hands coming up to cover her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Why?" The word tore out of me. "Why would you do this? I've given you everything. I helped you through your divorce. I lent you money when Richard left. I treated you like family because you are family. Were we not close enough? Did I not love you enough?" Janet's hands dropped, and what I saw in her eyes wasn't remorse. It was resentment, decades of it, calcified into something hard and ugly. "Love me?" She laughed bitterly. "You've never loved me, Martha. You've pitied me. Poor Janet, who couldn't keep her husband. Poor Janet, who never made anything of herself. Poor Janet, who needs her big sister to bail her out. That's not. Do you know what it's like?" Her voice rose. "Living in your shadow for 60 years? You got the business when Dad died. You got the successful husband. You got the big house and the perfect son, and the money, always the money. And I got nothing. Nothing but your charity and your condescension." I stared at her. This woman I'd known my entire life. This stranger. "So when Chloe came to me," Janet continued, "when she told me about the plan, I thought, why not? Why shouldn't I get something for once? Why should you have everything while I scrape by on whatever crumbs you throw me?" "I would have given you anything," I said softly. "Anything you asked for. You only had to ask." "I didn't want to ask." She was crying now, tears of rage and self-pity. "I wanted to take. For once in my miserable life, I wanted to take something from you." I stood up. My legs felt weak, but my voice was steady. "You've taken enough, Janet. You've taken my trust, my love. The last family I thought I had." I walked to the door and opened it. "Now get out of my house. Martha, please. Get out and don't come back. Ever." She left. The door closed behind her, and I leaned against it, breathing hard. In my pocket, my phone had captured everything, every confession, every excuse, every bitter word. I pulled it out and ended the recording. 3 minutes and 47 seconds. That's how long it took my sister to destroy 60 years of love. I saved the file and sent it to Gregory. Then I went upstairs, lay down on my bed, and cried for the last time. Tomorrow, there would be no more tears. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The morning after Janet's confession, I woke before dawn. There's something clarifying about betrayal. It burns away the fog of sentiment, the comfortable illusions we wrap ourselves in to get through our days. For 5 years, I had lived in a dream, the devoted grandmother, the generous provider, the keeper of my son's legacy. Now I was awake, and I had work to do. Gregory's office was hushed and serious when I arrived at 9 sharp. He had assembled a small team, a forensic accountant named Patricia, a family law specialist named David Chen, and himself. They sat around the conference table with folders and laptops, ready for war. "Martha," Gregory stood to greet me. Are you sure you're ready for this? Once we start, there's no going back. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. He nodded and gestured to Patricia. Walk her through the financial piece. Patricia was a small woman with sharp eyes and no patience for small talk. Mrs. Holloway, I've reviewed 5 years of your financial records. The total amount transferred to Chloe Mercer and her family through various means is $1,437,000. However, that's not the most concerning part. There's something more concerning? The access patterns. She turned her laptop toward me. Chloe has been listed as an authorized user on 3 of your accounts. She's made transfers you never approved. Small amounts, usually under $500. Easy to miss. Over 5 years, that adds up to an additional $89,000. $89,000, stolen in increments so small I never noticed. Additionally, Patricia continued, the educational trust you established for Leo has been accessed 17 times for related expenses. Total withdrawals, $124,000. The expenses documented include spa treatments, designer clothing, and a vacation to the Maldives. She used my grandson's education fund for a vacation. She used a lot of things for a lot of purposes that weren't intended, Mrs. Holloway. Gregory took over. Here's what we're going to do. First, we freeze everything. As of this morning, every account Chloe has access to will be locked. Her credit cards, the ones you pay for, will be canceled. The monthly allowance stops immediately. What about Tyler? Brenda? Tyler will receive an eviction notice today. He has 30 days to vacate the guest house. As for Brenda and the Florida condo, Gregory smiled grimly. That one's more satisfying, since you paid for it entirely and we have records proving it was obtained through fraudulent pretenses. We're initiating a sale. She'll receive notice that the property is being listed. Can we do that? It's in her name. David Chen spoke up. The deed is in her name, but the purchase was made entirely with your funds under false pretenses. We're arguing fraudulent transfer. It'll take time, but we have a strong case. In the meantime, she'll have to deal with real estate agents and potential buyers walking through her living room. I thought of Brenda, sipping champagne in first class on my dime, complaining about turbulence. The image of strangers touring her oceanfront condo brought me a small, cold satisfaction. Do it, I said. All of it. Meeting Ryan Caldwell was harder than I expected. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Stamford, neutral ground, away from Westchester's prying eyes. I arrived early, as I always do, and watched him walk in. He was nervous. I could see it in the way he checked his phone 3 times before reaching my table, the way his hands couldn't quite find a comfortable position. Good, I thought. He should be nervous. This conversation would change his life. Mrs. Holloway? He extended his hand. I'm Ryan. Thank you for meeting with me. Sit down, Mr. Caldwell. He sat. Up close, I could see the resemblance. Leo had his jaw, his coloring, the same slight dimple in his left cheek. The evidence had been there all along, if I'd known to look. I have to be honest with you, I began. When I first learned about your connection to my daughter-in-law, I wanted to hate you. You had an affair with a married woman. You fathered a child with her while my son was still alive. Ryan flinched but didn't look away. I know, and I'm not going to make excuses. What I did was wrong, but I need you to understand. I didn't know she was married at first. She told me she was separated, that the divorce was almost final. By the time I realized the truth, you were already involved. I was already in love. He laughed bitterly. Stupid, I know. Chloe has a way of making you believe whatever she wants you to believe. When she told me it was over, that she was going back to her husband, I accepted it. I thought that was the end. But it wasn't. No, I found out about the pregnancy through a mutual friend, months later. By then, David had died, and Chloe had moved in with you. I tried to reach out, but she threatened me. Said if I came forward, she'd destroy me. Tell everyone I was harassing a grieving widow, ruin my reputation, my career. So you stayed quiet. I stayed quiet. For 5 years I stayed quiet, and every single day I wondered about my son. His voice cracked. I didn't even know his name until you told me. Leo. He's 5 years old and I've never held him. Never read him a bedtime story. Never. He stopped, composed himself. Mrs. Holloway, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I want to know my son. I want to be part of his life. I'll do whatever it takes, lawyers, paternity tests, custody arrangements. I'm not trying to take him from you. I just want a chance to be his father. I studied him for a long moment. This man who had slept with my son's wife. This man who had fathered the child I'd raised as my own. This man who was Leo's only hope for a real family. I believe you, I finally said, and I'm going to help you. Ryan's eyes widened. You are? Leo deserves a father who wants him, not a mother who uses him as a prop for financial gain. Whatever happens next, I want that boy to have a chance at a normal life. I pulled a card from my purse. This is my attorney. Call him tomorrow. We'll discuss the path forward. He took the card like it was made of gold. Thank you, Mrs. Holloway. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly before it gets better. The trap closed on a Thursday. Chloe was at a spa in Greenwich, the same spa I'd been funding for years, when the process server found her. I wasn't there, but Gregory described the scene with barely concealed satisfaction. She was mid-facial, cucumber slices on her eyes, when the server walked in and announced her name. The papers landed in her lap: fraud charges, termination of financial support, and notification that her residence, my residence, was being listed for sale. Her scream, apparently, could be heard in the parking lot. Tyler's eviction notice arrived the same morning. 30 days to vacate the guest house, effective immediately. No more stipend. No more free rides. Brenda received her news via certified mail in Florida. The condo was being placed on the market as part of a fraud recovery action. A realtor would be contacting her shortly to schedule showings. And finally, I made the call I'd been dreading. Child Protective Services, how may I help you? My name is Martha Holloway. I need to report a situation involving a minor child. His mother has been committing financial fraud using his identity, and I have reason to believe she's an unfit parent. The words tasted like medicine, bitter but necessary. It took 3 hours to give my statement. When I hung up, my hand was shaking. My phone rang almost immediately. Chloe's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring twice, 3 times. Then I answered. You evil old witch! Her voice was raw, ragged. What have you done? They froze my cards. They're selling my house. Your house, I said quietly. I don't believe you've ever owned a house, Chloe. You've simply been living in mine. I'll destroy you. I'll take Leo and disappear, and you'll never see him again. Come home, I interrupted. We need to talk. And Chloe? Silence on the other end, heavy breathing. Bring your suitcases. You're going to need them. I hung up and walked to the window. The afternoon sun was setting over my 3 acres, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. The guest house where Tyler was packing his things. The driveway where Chloe's Mercedes would soon pull in for the last time. The stage was set. Now it was time for the final act. She arrived at 6:47 p.m. I know because I was watching from the living room window, a cup of tea growing cold in my hands, waiting for the white Mercedes to round the bend in my driveway. The October air had turned sharp, and the trees were shedding their leaves in curtains of gold and crimson. Beautiful. Indifferent. Nature doesn't care about human betrayal. The car stopped abruptly when she saw the suitcases. 4 of them, Louis Vuitton, gifts I'd given her over the years, arranged neatly on the front lawn like an art installation of exile. Beside them, cardboard boxes containing her clothes, her jewelry, her designer handbags. Everything she owned that wasn't nailed down. Chloe stumbled out of the car, her face blotchy from crying, her hair unwashed, a far cry from the polished predator who had humiliated me at Leo's birthday dinner. What is this? Her voice cracked. Martha, what is this? I stepped onto the porch. The cold air filled my lungs, and I felt strangely calm, peaceful even. like the eye of a hurricane. "It's exactly what it looks like, Chloe. Your things are packed. It's time for you to leave." "You can't do this. This is my home." "No, it was your hunting ground. There's a difference." Movement caught my eye. Tyler, shuffling across the lawn toward a rented U-Haul truck, his arms full of belongings. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished. He wouldn't meet my gaze. "Tyler!" Chloe screamed at him. "Do something! Call someone!" "Who should I call, Chloe?" His voice was flat, defeated. "The lawyers she's got lining up to charge me with forgery? The cops who want to talk to me about check fraud in Jersey?" He threw a box into the truck with more force than necessary. "It's over. Can't you see that? It's over." Chloe's phone rang. She answered with shaking hands. "Mom? Mom, slow down. I can't." "What do you mean they're showing the condo? What buyers?" A pause. No, that's impossible. She can't do that. I could hear Brenda's hysterical voice bleeding through the speaker. Something about a real estate agent, about strangers walking through her bedroom, about lawyers and fraud, and how could this happen? Chloe lowered the phone, stared at it like it had betrayed her. The Mercer empire, such as it was, built on my grief and my money, crumbling in real time. Good. She came at me then, stormed up the porch steps, her face contorted with rage, mascara running down her cheeks like war paint. For a moment, I thought she might actually strike me. "You miserable old hag." Her voice was venom. "After everything I've done for you, after all the years I spent playing the devoted daughter-in-law, pretending to care about your boring stories and your dead husband's legacy, I earned that money." "You stole that money," I said quietly, "and you stole 5 years of my life. I gave you Leo. I gave you a grandson to love. You gave me a lie." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the envelope. Cream-colored, heavy stock, the same kind of paper she'd used for the forged letter from David. Poetic justice. "Do you know what this is?" I held it up. "These are DNA results, Chloe, certified by Dr. Alan Harrison at Columbia Presbyterian. They prove, conclusively, that Leo is not David's biological son. He never was." The color drained from her face. "You knew," I continued. "You knew from the beginning. You were already pregnant with another man's child when David died. And you saw an opportunity, a grieving mother, a fortune waiting to be inherited, a lie that was almost too easy to tell. That's not, don't." I stepped closer, and she actually flinched. "I know about Ryan Caldwell. I've met him. He's a decent man, and he wants to be part of his son's life. Social Services has been notified about your fraud and your fitness as a parent. There will be hearings, custody arrangements. You may even face criminal charges." Chloe's mask shattered completely. Gone was the polished manipulator, the charming con artist, the woman who had called me a lonely old woman in front of a restaurant full of people. In her place stood a frightened, furious, desperate creature who had finally run out of angles. "You'll never see him again," she hissed. "Leo loves me. I'm his mother. I'll take him and disappear, and you'll do nothing of the kind." I handed her the envelope. "You're going to cooperate with the custody evaluation. You're going to allow Ryan Caldwell supervised visitation. And you're going to thank God I'm not pursuing the full extent of criminal charges, because if I did, you'd be looking at prison time." She stared at the envelope like it was a snake. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do any of this? You could just let it go, keep paying, keep pretending. You'd still get to see Leo." "Because I loved a lie," I said softly. "For 5 years, I poured my heart into a fiction you created. And that love was real. My love for that little boy was the most real thing in my life. But I can't build a future on a foundation of fraud. And neither can Leo." I turned toward the door, then paused. "You were right about one thing, Chloe. Without Leo, I was just a lonely old woman in a big house." I looked back at her. "But I'd rather be alone with my dignity than surrounded by people waiting for me to die so they can pick my bones. I handed her one final document, a check for $10,000. This is severance, enough to get you started somewhere else. Consider it the last act of generosity from the woman you tried to destroy. I stepped inside. The gold mine is closed. Goodbye, Chloe. The door closed between us. Through the window, I watched her crumple, watched her sink to her knees on my porch, the envelope clutched to her chest, sobbing the ugly, honest tears she'd never shed at my son's funeral. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, only the quiet relief of a long illness finally breaking. 3 years later. The letter arrived on a Tuesday in April. I almost missed it among the bills and catalogs, a small envelope addressed in careful, childish handwriting. The return address was in Connecticut, where Ryan Caldwell had settled with his son. Dear Nana, Dad says I should write to you because it's been a long time. I am 8 now and in 3rd grade. I like soccer and reading, and my teacher says I'm good at math like my mom used to be before she went away. I know you're not my real grandma. Dad told me the truth when I was old enough. He said you loved me very much when I was little, even when things were confusing. I remember the dinosaur cake. I remember you reading me stories about T-Rexes. I remember your house smelled like flowers, and you always had pancakes on Saturday. Dad says maybe we could visit sometime if you want. He says you're a good person who did a hard thing for the right reasons. I don't totally understand, but I think I believe him. I miss you, Nana. Do you miss me? Love, Leo. P.S. I still like dinosaurs. I read the letter 3 times. Then I sat in Robert's study, my study now, and let the tears come. They were different tears than the ones I'd cried that night after Janet's betrayal. These were clean, warm, the kind of tears that wash things away instead of drowning you. Chloe had pleaded guilty to fraud charges in exchange for a suspended sentence. She'd lost primary custody of Leo, but retained visitation rights, supervised at first, then gradually expanded. Last I heard, she was working as a receptionist in Hartford, living in a small apartment, rebuilding something resembling an honest life. I chose to believe people could change, even her. Janet had moved to Arizona. We hadn't spoken since that day in my living room. Perhaps we never would. Some wounds don't heal, they just scar over, and you learn to live around them. Tyler had drifted west, last known address somewhere in Nevada. Brenda was renting a 1-bedroom in Sarasota, a far cry from her oceanfront condo. And I, the lonely old woman in the big house, had discovered something remarkable. I wasn't lonely at all. I had Eleanor, my fierce friend, who'd helped me find my strength. I had Gregory, who'd guided me through the legal labyrinth with patience and care. I had my garden, my books, my volunteer work at the hospital where I'd spent my career. And now, perhaps, I had a chance to know Leo again. Not as the fictional grandson of a con artist's scheme, but as the real boy he'd always been. Curious, dinosaur-obsessed, growing up with a father who actually wanted him. I pulled out a sheet of cream-colored stationery, the good kind, heavy stock, and began to write. Dear Leo, thank you for your letter. It made me happier than I can tell you. Yes, I miss you. I miss you every single day, and yes, I would love for you to visit. We could go to the museum together, the one with the paleontologist you liked so much. I hear they have a new T-Rex exhibit. Your dad is right. I did a hard thing for the right reasons. Someday, when you're older, I'll explain it all. But for now, just know this. I loved you from the moment I held you, and that love was never a lie. It was the truest thing I had. Some things in life break us. Others make us stronger. You, my dear boy, made me stronger. Come visit whenever you're ready. The pancakes will be waiting. All my love, Nana. P.S. I still like dinosaurs too. I sealed the envelope and walked it to the mailbox myself, even though my knees ached and the April wind was sharp. The sun was setting over my 3 acres. painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. The guest house stood empty now, converted into an art studio I'd always wanted. The main house was quieter than it used to be, but it was mine. Truly mine, for the first time in years. I thought about legacy, what we leave behind, what we pass on. Robert had left me love. David had left me grief. Chloe had left me wisdom, bought at a terrible price. And Leo? Leo had left me hope. I walked back inside, closed the door against the evening chill, and smiled. The lonely old woman in the big house had survived. And she was just getting started.